Okay, today's lesson is about fractions, and we're going to learn about adding and subtracting fractions. Now, first step is convert, which means change them to so that they have the same denominator, which means common denominator. And step 2, and then add or subtract the numerators. Okay, now denominator and numerator on a fraction is, numerator is the number on the top of the fraction, denominator is the number on the bottom of the fraction. So how do I remember this? D for down and N for north. So north is normally what? Up. Okay, and down is obviously down. So when I see numerator is my number on the top and denominator is on the bottom. Okay, that's how I remember. And when you have a mixed numerals, which is whole number with fractions, something like that, that's what we call mixed numeral. Okay, now mixed numeral, adding, subtracting mixed numerals is, first you got to do add or subtract the whole numbers, which is the number in front of a fraction, and the fractions separately. Okay, that's one way of doing it. And the second way of doing it is convert, change them to improper fraction. Now, improper fraction is the one that numerator is bigger than the denominator. So, for example, if I convert this mixed numeral to improper fraction, I don't know whether you remember how to do this quickly, is you do, from the denominator to the whole number, you times it. And then you add the numerator. But your denominator doesn't change. So it'll be over something over 3. Okay? So I'm going to times this. So 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. So if I convert this mixed numeral to improper fraction, it'll be 7 over 3. Okay? So we convert that first, and then we find the common denominator, and also after that we do add or subtract the numerators. Okay, well, let's have a look at the examples now. Okay, first example, evaluate, which means solve, and each expression. So expression A is the 1 over 3 plus 5 over 6. Now, when you look at the denominators of each fraction, which is 3 and 6, they are different. So first thing you have to do is find the common denominator. But before we jump into the common denominator, 3 and 6 are in the same family. It means like 3 is, you know, their family. When this happens, you need to pick the bigger number as your common denominator. So for example, if your denominators were 2 and 4, you know, 2 and 4 is in the same family because it's bigger by 2. So 3 and 6 is bigger by 3, so they're in the same family. Think of it like that. So you will pick bigger number as your common denominator. So here, what is a bigger number here? It's 6, isn't it? So I'm going to put common denominator, CD, equals 6 is my common denominator. So after that, I need to look at these two fractions. Now, this one is already in the form of common denominator, so I don't need to change it. But this one I do. Okay, so I'm going to change this 3, the denominator 3 to 6. So I'm going to write 1 over 3. And to make a 3 to 6, I need to times by 2. And I'm going to do the same thing on the top. So whatever you do on the denominator, you've got to do the same thing on the numerator. So it becomes 2 over 6. So it's equivalent fraction. 1/3 is actually can be expressed as 2 over 6, which is same. Now, but using 2 over 6, meaning we have a common denominator of 6. So I'm going to rewrite this expression, 2 over 6 plus 5 over 6. Now, as you can see, we got common denominator. We don't have to worry about now. So all you have to do is add the numerator together. So 2 plus 5 is 7 over 6. Okay. Now this is what we call improper fraction, isn't it? Because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. Now I'm going to change this one to mixed numeral, which with a whole number with a fraction. So how many 6 going to 7? Once. That's my whole number. Now denominator doesn't change. But what's on the numerator? It'll be the remainder of it. So 6 goes into 7 once and a remainder of 1. So 7 over 6 equal to 1 and 1 over 6. Okay, so that was the first question. Second one, I'm going to look at second one, is 5 over 7 minus 2 over 3. Now, 7, the denominator, 7 and 3 are not in the same family. Now, when this happens, your common denominator, simply you just times them together. 7 times 3, which is 21. So your common denominator of these two fractions is 21. So you need to change this, each one of them, with a denominator of 21. So 5 over 7, I need to times something so that I could have 21 as my denominator. So what do I have to times? 7 times 3 will be 21. 3 times 7 is 21. Now again, whenever you times on the denominator, you will do the same thing on the numerator. Okay? So what will happen then after that, I will have the equivalent fraction, which will be 15 over 21. This one will be 14 over 21. So now we got two fractions with a common denominator of 21. So I'm going to rewrite this. 15 over 21 minus 14 over 21 equals 1 over 21. Okay, so we solve that. Now, I'm going to push this one up and do the third example. Now, 3 minus 3 over 4. We can rewrite this as a 3 over 1 minus 3 over 4, so that I can see there's two fractions. The 3 is really 3 over 1. Now, my common denominator will be 1 times 4 equals 4. Why? Because 1 and 4, they're not in the same family, so I'm just going to times them. Now, this one is already in the form of common denominator 4. All I have to change is this. Okay, so I'm going to change that. 3 over 1. Now, 1 times what will make 4? Of course, it's a 4. And I will do the same thing on the top. And my new fraction with denominator, common denominator 4, will be 12 over 4. Okay, so all I'm going to do now here is rewrite the expression 12 over 4 minus 3 over 4 equals 9 over 4. Okay, now this is, again, it's an improper fraction because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So let's change it to mixed numeral. So how many 4's going to 9? Twice, isn't it? So I'm going to write 2 whole number, and that, of course, denominator doesn't change. What's a remainder? So on the top, the numerator has to be the remainder of it. So 4 times 2 is 8, and so 9 take away 8, remainder is 1. So the answer is 2 1/4. Now, fourth example. Okay, as you can see straight away, what is this? What do you call this kind of fraction? It's mixed numerals. Remember at the beginning of the lesson, we said if we have mixed numeral, we can do two ways doing it. I'm going to show you first one. So I'm going to write this first. Way of doing it is we're going to add or divide it separately, like whole number and fraction separately. So I'm going to do separately. So what's a whole number here? These two are my whole numbers, isn't it? So I'm going to put in a bracket 1 plus 4. Okay, I'm going to add them together, and they add the fractions separately. Okay, so that would be 5 plus. Now this one is what we have to do, like in the previous examples we've done. We got to do that. So I'm going to put it in this. I'm going to still put them in the keep them in the brackets. So 3 and 5 different denominators. So we need to come up with common denominator, and they're not in the same family. So I'm just going to simply times them. So what's that going to be? 15. Okay. So my common denominator for these two fractions is 15. So I need to change these ones. So I'm going to change them. 2 over 3 and times 5 will give me 15. And I'm going to do the same thing on the top. And I'll do the same, 1 over 5. And I'm going to times by 3 to make it 15. I'm going to do the same thing on the top. And I'm going to close it. So I still have 5 here, and let's see if I can tighten it up a little bit. So I'll get 15, I get 10 on the top, I get 3, I get 15. Okay, so 5 plus 15, 10 plus 3, 13. Okay, so the answer for this expression is 5, 13 and 15. So the answer is 5 and 13 over 15. Now that's one way of doing it, and I'm going to show you another way of doing it, changing into improper fraction, and then solve it that way. So let's have a look. I'm going to change this mixed numerals into improper fraction. So I'm going to do one at a time. Remember, we're doing it from clockwise. From the denominator, I'm going to times this together and add this. Okay, so that will become, denominator doesn't change, so I'm going to write this expression on the top. So 3 times 1 plus 2 equals 3 plus 2, 5 over 3. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to times the denominator with the whole number and add the numerator, which is the remainder. And 5, the denominator doesn't change. 5 times 4 plus 1. 5 times 4, 20. 20 plus 1 is 21. Now, even it seems like a bit tricky and harder and longer way of doing it, but it's a good skill to know how to convert, how to change mixed numeral to improper fraction. So it's good to learn the new skills, yeah? Okay, so I'm going to rewrite the expression in the form of improper fraction. So 5 over 3 plus 21 over 5. So I'm going to push down a little bit. So this becomes 5 over 3, and then that becomes 21 over 5. Now, what happens now is, it's like one that we've done in previous first 3 examples. This one has a different denominators, and they're not in the same family, so we're going to times them together. So common denominator will be 3 times 5 equals 15. So I'm going to do the change now. 5, 3, and 3 times 5 will make 15. So I'm going to do 5 on the top here, and 21, 5, and then I'm going to times by 3 to make 15, and I'm going to do the same thing on the top. So what will happen now is, on the bottom, my common denominator is 15, so I'm going to rewrite them. There's a 15. On the top is 25. 21 times 3, it's like 21 plus 21 plus 21, so 63. Now when I do that, I will get 88 over 15. Now that's improper fraction, and I would like to change that to mixed numeral. So we got to do a bit of a division here. 88 divided by 15. So how many 15 can go into 88? Again, I'm going to just write it 15, 15, 15. What's that? Like so, 45. I'm sure you can go in and have a plenty of leftover. So I'm going to add a little bit more. 15, 15 is 30. So if I add a 30, it'll be 75. Now, if I add a 15 here, again, it will be 90, so it'll be over 88, and I can't do it. So how many 15s gone into to make a 75? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to go 5 and 75 it was, and take it away. What do we got left? Is a 13. Okay, so I'm going to change that to improper mixed numeral from improper fraction. It goes into 5. 15 goes into 88 5 times with denominator. And what was the remainder? That goes on to top. So the whole number is in the front, and denominator doesn't change. The remainder goes on to the top. And that's the same as what we got when we just add whole numbers and fractions separately.